Good evening. It's Thursday, December 18th, and we are discussing Jean Meltzer's The Eight Heartbreaks of Hanukkah. And I'm sorry she couldn't be with us tonight. She's at a conference, and she really wanted to do this before Hanukkah, in case you all haven't read the book or to get more people to read the book. But I tried to tell them my people read the book because it's a book club where you discuss the book.
Right.
So yeah. Anyway, let me just there we go. I want to there. Okay, we're good. So, full transparency, I had read a couple of her books before, and after I read this book to prepare for tonight, of course, and I also listened to part of it, and it was pretty good. And I just went back and read all of her books
No.
because it's really it's interesting. Let me tell you a little bit about her. I'll show you some pictures. Uh, she's an American Jewish author, uh, um, former producer, writer. I think she worked for television, and she left the television industry to study in rabbinical school and seminars in Jerusalem for 5 years until she left as a result of myalgic encephalomyelitis. So
Oh,
she herself has a chronic disease. So that's also I think, and her books have a lot of that. Let me just put up her. Oh no, that's not her. There she is. Okay. And I'm now following her on Instagram and on some social media things. And she's very peppy and there she is. She's married. Um, and but I don't think they have any children. Her sister, and this is her sister's story. Her sister had a baby who had to be aborted, and um it was a boy, so they switched that up a little bit. So, I mean, obviously, both of these women have, terrible fertility problems. And that's something which, we see in 2025 and in the Jewish community. And I believe, and you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, um, I think that as women put off having children later, this happens. We see this much more. So, with that, the matzo ball, yes, that was her first book. The other thing that I wanted to say, the matzo ball seemed very cleverly crafted, and now she's just whipping out a book a year. So she can't have the same attention to detail. I will say the Jewish detail, she really knows what she's talking about. You can tell she went to the Jewish Reconstructionist College. And she knows a friend of mine here who's the Northwestern Hillel rabbi. So um, usually I say, why do we give it that name? But Susan, go ahead.
well, I really like this book. And I think when you get right down to it, it's a beautiful love story. And I think the business with the ghosts and it's hard to tell whether she's dreaming or whether she's imagining or what. But the fact is, neither one of them for a long time were able to face the truth about their feelings for one another.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I I I just loved it. I thought that the writing
Yeah,
was really good. And I mean, it really had me engrossed.
good,
But
good, good,
and as
good.
I said, I look at it as a beautiful love story.
I agree. I mean, they really had poor Eli. And listen, he had chutzpah to say that he was a baker. And at first, as you start reading it, I thought, oh, he knows, but he knows nothing. He knows less than nothing.
Right.
And I think the whole relationship and the chronic sickness is heartbreaking. Howard,
Yeah.
then Elaine.
First of all, Lillian, I want to know, are you our mommy tonight?
Oh, that director. Oh, that was funny. Yes, I am. Yes,
Okay.
I am.
Oh, very good. I love the book. Um, yeah, there's some great writing, some great scenes, but I have to say, when I read the author's note at the end, I became very deflated knowing this was a true story. Because I had no clue until I read the author's note at the end that this was based on her sister, and I was
Yeah.
like, I felt good when I got to the end, and like I said, it was just a really fun, great story to read. But then when I read that, it was like, ooh, it went
Yeah.
bad. Not that it's made the book bad, but I wasn't expecting that at
Yeah.
all.
I mean, it's sad. And if you, um, I think I said this at my short story book club, you can just go down a rabbit hole. But I think both of them are in happy marriages, both sisters. But I also think, they've just had a lot of sadness and with infertility and it's just I at the when you read all that stuff in the author's note, it was really heartbreaking. Elaine.
Yeah, I, I really, at first I started reading this and I thought it was fairly contrived part where they discussed the loss of the child. It was really well handled and really sensitively written. And I worked for many years in a high risk practice and we're going through this. And it just, it's so hard because, these are people that didn't choose to terminate. They're trying to prevent pain.
Yeah.
And it was just really, really well written and really accurate and correct.
Yes. Yeah. It was very poignant. Very, very, very.
Because a lot of times when you see stuff like that on, yeah.
Yeah. Paula.
I thought the author did an excellent job of making us understand that men grieved very deeply also in a pregnancy loss. And that's not often recognized and it's not publicized, but it hits both members of the team very,
Yeah.
very hard.
Yeah.
And I did a very, that was part of the crux of their problem of not being able
Yes.
to acknowledge their loss.
Right.
But he was grieving deeply.
Right.
And the same with chronic illness. When that occurs, it's the patient who gets all the sympathy, and the rest of the family is affected as well. And the other loved ones are affected as well.
Right.
She did a very good job with that.
Yeah, I thought all of that was very good. And at first I thought that um she was the really hard one and the husband was too good, but then, he left her and the crib was still there. Note to self, that's what, a lot of Jewish tradition, you don't set that crib up. Maddie, I'll unmute you. Go ahead.
Yes, I
Or kid.
we're both here. You got us two for one.
Yes.
I obviously was familiar with Jean Meltzer and loved her work and followed her on social media, and I've read all of her other books in addition to this one. And obviously, what drew me to her was being a Jewish author and romance, because that's what I prefer to read. I like happy stories. But the chronic illness representation, since I'm chronically ill, and in this case, not the main character, but her sister-in-law has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is what I have.
Mm.
So that little bit of rep is thrown in there additionally, which I'd be curious if like the sister-in-law is going to get her own book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I did really enjoy it, and I think that's something she always does well is the chronic illness representation, because each of her books has a different one. Her first one, the matzo ball, like you
Yeah.
said, as is
Right.
what she has. So that was
Right.
very authentic, and so it's been interesting to see her write books that are not the disability she has.
Right. And they're
Yeah.
usually right at the beginning. I just read Kissing Kosher, so that was the one who
Yeah.
was the baker.
Yeah.
But they usually have some disease, which again, you go down the rabbit hole looking up. It was some type of cystitis in Kissing Kosher, but uh,
Interstitial cystitis. Yeah.
yes, yeah. And do you think, Maddie, you think it's a good representation of chronic illness?
I think for the most part, she does a great job representing chronic illness.
Hmm.
Like one of the best I've seen because it's a space I'm in. It's a space I know a lot about, and so I do think she does a great job. I was maybe slightly disappointed that the first time like my chronic illness shows up, it's a side character who gets like two lines. So I was hoping she'd expand on that a little bit. One way.
There were a lot of references to characters who had been in her previous books
Yeah.
in this book too.
So many Easter eggs to the previous book.
Who were the Easter eggs?
Well, in the very end, she's reading the matzo ball.
All right.
They have food from the bakery.
All right.
They
The
caterer was from the matzo ball also.
Okay.
Like the pottery was from Magical Meat Cute.
Oh,
The vase that she like
yeah.
was from the potter in her other books. So, like I mean, like if it's just a huge amount.
I'm gonna have to tune in better next time.
And I didn't see that in her previous books.
No, not at all.
I didn't see the references to the past books. So we're kind of wondering if, the sister-in-law might get her own book about Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Right. It'll be, I always ask, what are you working on? And for those of you who have been along for the ride, sometimes they tell us, and sometimes they're like, it's a secret, I can't tell. And I'm like, come on. But I am very curious, what she's working on. Merle.
This is the first time I've ever seen a parody of a Christmas Carol that was about a woman. And I thought that was kind of different and interesting. And the other thing was that about ghosts, where Jared, whom she's working with, explains something to her that she never thought about before. He says, Scrooge doesn't change because of the ghosts. He changes because he experiences the heartbreaks of life from a perspective outside of his own. And this made her start looking at her husband's grief differently and feeling that she had been the one who was the bad one, who hurt him. So I thought that was great because sometimes you get these words of wisdom from secondary characters like this. So
Yeah. Which heartbreak felt most relatable or emotionally powerful to you and why? Do you think she built them up? Howard.
Well, the one that struck me, I love the image she created with the first ghost. Her old boss had all the cell phones and the computers dangling from her like ornaments on a Christmas tree or something. And just somebody who's so wrapped up in their life and so, is a workaholic. And I just love how she created that image for the first ghost.
Who else? The ghost with David. Who was the ex-husband is David, right? The doctor.
Yeah. The one that really got me was where she was in high school and left virginity with, the school stud or whoever.
Yes.
Just because that's such a high school thing to do.
I did think, and eventually I guess it evens out, but Evelyn is so harsh and rigid. And, Dave, the doctor, and he just keeps helping her. And the misogyny in that business, of the big guy leaving these kids with her all day. I
Mhm.
had smoke coming out of my ears. Like, you don't do that. That's not right. Never mind, you'd have to have permission slips, yada, 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 yada. Um, so, and I also thought it was interesting, David really gave up this TV practice, which was lucrative, but not fulfilling. And so so I'm glad that they they worked it out. They worked it out in the end. Um, what does the novel suggest about timing, both in love and in healing? Paula.
Well, I think you certainly have to revisit the traumas that have triggered all this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you can't move forward. You can't forget, but you can't move forward without acknowledging it.
Yeah. Yeah. Merle.
I think it really supported the idea of second chances, that if you fail at first, with the death of the baby, I mean, that was so awful. And she just ran away from it by going to work all the time, and he felt abandoned. Some people feel united over a tragedy like that, but some people go in different directions and they have to get divorced because being together just reminds them of the tragedy all the time. So I thought that was very, very realistic and sensitive.
Yeah. Here,
Great.
here. Schubert's and then Susan Wallach.
I think for
Then
both, it
Marilyn.
suggests that it's not linear. Both with relationships, you think you meet, you get married, you have a baby, and like this is the order you do things in. And so both timing and with healing and trauma, that it's not linear. You have ups and downs. You may have to move backwards before you can move forwards.
Yeah. Susan Wallach. I'll unmute you. Okay, you're
Okay.
unmuted. Go ahead.
One of the things when you talk about her knowledge of Judaism, right in the beginning, which person in the chorus was missing? The 18th one.
Oh. Oh,
That,
right.
that struck me as she opens the book with the 18th person missing.
Yeah,
And I thought,
absolutely.
wow, this really is about Judaism.
Yeah, yeah. Marilyn.
What I found interesting was when she first found out that she was pregnant, she didn't want the baby. And she actually told her husband, and he was very, very upset. But then she finally decided, I really want this baby. But I think she felt guilty all of her life up until the time they finally were able to get together, because she originally didn't want the baby. And then when she decided she wanted the baby and she loved the baby, and then she had to lose the baby. I think the guilt of the way she felt about the beginning when she found out she was pregnant, I think that caused her a lot of inner turmoil. And she, like you say, she couldn't get over that grief. I think there were twofold grief, that she felt guilty because she originally didn't want the baby. And then when she lost the baby, it just tore her apart. And then, of course, she couldn't forgive her husband for leaving. And because, she basically sent him on his way because she could not open up to him about her grief and wouldn't let him open up to her about his grief. And that's when they finally, at the end of the book, they finally came together about that and realized, and she
Right,
realized what she did.
right.
That was
And
my take on all of that. And I thought that was very,
yeah,
very hurtful for her that she had to
right,
live her life that way.
right. And therapy and all of that, she works in here. There was one Jewish question that I was dying to ask her, and I may email her. All the other Jewish things are right on, but when you get a divorce, you have to get a get. And she didn't mention anything about the get. That's a Jewish divorce. And I was reading another book and she mentions it. And I know after 5 years of rabbinical school, she knows what a get is. So why, maybe she didn't want to explain it. She didn't want to bring that in. But I was like, Come on. And there you have to have that get and then marrying the same person twice and so on and so forth. Marilyn.
Well, I've been divorced for 26 years. Okay. And I had a very good reason. I was the one who went forward with the divorce, but I never did get the get. Okay. And I wasn't even thinking about anything like that because my marriage was so bad, especially at the end, and I just wanted to get out of it. So the last thing I was thinking about was the Jewish get. And to this day, I don't feel bad that I didn't do it because I just had to get out of a really bad marriage. But
I
yeah,
agree. You only need it if you get married again. And because the story, kind of ends with them, they're going to get married again.
okay, yeah.
And of course, today, especially in Reform Judaism,
Yep.
Rabbi Sarada would give you a get. But in Israel, especially with the ultra Orthodox, the Haredi, the man has to give the get, and they have these women, they keep them hostage for money, and they drain them dry before they give them
Ooh,
the get.
that's
So
purity. Oh,
there was a very famous case in Israel where the man won't give his wife a get, and he, he went to prison. He died in prison, and then the Rabbanut, who I am not a fan of, said, "Okay, you have to sit shiva. It's your husband."
in other words, I would have had to, my ex-husband would have had to give me the get. Well,
Yeah,
he was not really very religious at all, so he might not even have known about that. But I think he would have held me hostage about it.
he
And
might have.
oh yeah, I know he would have. That's why I got rid of him. Okay.
Okay,
Sorry, ladies.
that's okay. Um, Hanukkah is often framed as a joyful celebration of light. How does this novel invite us to make room for sadness, grief, and struggle within Jewish sacred time? I mean, didn't you kind of want to see her production? And you were nervous at the end, like, is that big ghost going to fall down? Are the kids going to perform? Is that crazy actor gonna come and sing? You're so wrapped up in it. But this book definitely has grief. I mean, it
It
just
was good. I enjoyed it very
yeah,
much
yeah.
too.
I got you. Go ahead, Schubert's. I unmuted you.
Thank you. I think with what you were asking, I feel like multiple times in the book for both main characters, they really use lighting the menorah and having Hanukkah be about light, like as the moment to be, this is so dark, this is so heavy, we're struggling with trauma, but lighting the menorah is the moment that we're going to feel hopeful and feel light and kind of turn the corner and change how we feel about all of this darkness and traumatic stuff. And so that's sort of what leaves room for both.
They foreshadowed the baby dying
Oh
from the
yeah.
get-go. But I don't know. I agree with Howard. After you read the true story, it's just overwhelmingly heartbreaking and not exactly, I, I don't know. You know that a baby dies, you just don't know what happened.
Yeah, like I thought it was maybe a miscarriage until the chapter came up. And also just compared to Gene Meltzer's other books, for me, they've all been sad because so many of them deal with what you lose from chronic illness, which is deeply personal to me. So there's that were not, but also like me being seen. So there's, both feelings for that. But this one was much darker and much sadder than any of her other books. Like it was just definitely a different vibe, both in terms of
Yeah.
subject matter, but also in terms of like the characters and the likability.
Yeah.
Very different characters. Because I still enjoyed it. It was just from what I was expecting from a Gene Meltzer book, felt so different.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. The other one seems like, a romp in the whatever, but
Yeah.
this one was hard. Although it is the eight heartbreaks of Hanukkah.
Well, and I
Susan,
do wonder, oh, sorry. I just do
no,
wonder,
no, go ahead, and then we'll get to Susan.
I do wonder if she's moving in a darker direction overall, because her last book before this was not nearly as dark as this, but still dealt with more serious subject matter in terms of anti-Semitism, in terms of violence, and all of that. So they sort of progressively have gotten less rompy and more
Yes. More
serious.
serious.
Yeah.
Susan and then Sandy.
Okay, I feel like with the loss of the baby, she felt it wasn't only guilt, she felt like she was being punished.
Yeah.
I think she felt that because she originally thought she would abort,
Yeah.
that this was, even though Judaism allows for abortion,
Hmm.
she felt like she was being punished and that her husband left without any notice to her, and that all these things that were happening to her were punishment for the fact that she originally didn't want this baby.
Mm.
And the other thing is that the two of them were so unable to open up and tell each other the truth about
Hmm.
how they felt.
Hmm.
And when you're in a marriage, if you and your spouse cannot tell each other the truth about how you feel about things, well, then the marriage is doomed because you can't. And the other thing about the infertility that struck me that wasn't brought up at all is I think, as we know, there's a lot more infertility problems today than there were when I was very young. Every one of us who wanted to get pregnant, I mean, my God, I got pregnant with the minute I wanted to, I did.
But
And
how old were you when you got pregnant?
oh, I was very young. But the other thing is, I wasn't on birth control pills either.
Oh.
And I think all the years that these young women have been taking birth control pills has hurt their fertility.
I don't know enough about that, but that's an interesting
I really think it has.
mhm.
And my daughter, who studied a lot of medical stuff because of her career, she says the same thing. It's all those years of, you know, the contraceptive pills.
Yikes. Okay. Sandy.
Never read a book where the beginning part section informs the audience that you're going to be reading something that's very, very sensitive, and and cautions you. And I wondered if her other books had a similar message to the readers.
Maddie, did they? I don't think so.
Trigger warning.
I think some of the later ones may have. I'd have to go back and look. I don't think her first two or three did, but I think the last one might have, with the extreme anti-Semitism
Yeah.
and the violence. I think that did have a trigger warning.
Was
Because some
that
of the other ones really needed it.
was that the one with the golem?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Although matzo ball, that chronic illness, I mean, it's there. Merle.
There's one scene in the story where her mother writes to her and says, "I'm so sorry to disturb you, but I wanted to say Happy Hanukkah." And she says, "Oh, Happy Hanukkah." And she refuses to light the menorah that's in her office. And she explains why, that this is a holiday that's about miracles. But she said God was unfair because he gives the miracles to some people, but not to others. And that almost explains to me, anyway, as why she even shows Hanukkah at all as the theme of her book about the 8 heartbreaks of Hanukkah, because she didn't get any of those miracles in her life.
Yeah.
And I think that made her very bitter. And
You're talking about Evelyn, right?
Evelyn, I'm talking about Evelyn, yeah.
Because I think Jean Meltzer also didn't get miracles. Because I don't think she has any children.
She doesn't, and she's talked about it openly on social media and in the back of the book a little bit, but that because of her chronic illness and some other struggles she had, that she's can't have children. She has her huskies. She's a big dog person, but obviously it's not a substitute for.
Yeah.
But she has talked about like that she would have wanted to have children, and that's something that unfortunately because of her chronic illness she can't.
The other thing that I thought, oh, Leanne, go ahead, and then I'm going to remember my. Wait, let me unmute
Got
you.
it.
Okay, there, go
I
ahead.
just had a quick comment about that. I think she did have miracles in her life, but when you have trauma, she met her husband, she fell in love with the love of her life. She did get pregnant. She did have relationships. She was very successful in her career and moving up. So I think she did have, if you want to call them miracles or positive things that happen. But when there's a trauma that any of the trauma that she experienced, it overshadows. It's almost like when you're going through a rough time and you're trying to say, well, somebody else has it worse than you do, it doesn't work because
Yeah.
you're suffering so much with what's happening to you at the moment. So I think, and that's what life is. It's a
Yeah.
series of, yes, there's ups and the downs really pull us down.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing, which certainly I thought was fascinating and has only become more and more harrowing, is the whole abortion issue. And that in 2025, we even have to, what terminated for medical, that was why she had to have an abortion, and how in one state you can have it up to how many weeks. I mean, sh- Evelyn didn't want to abort the baby, but the baby, was not going to live. And that, we live where the laws are so, favor the fetus. Not even, it's not a baby, it's a fetus. And again, in Judaism, uh, it favors the mom. That, if the mom's not going to live, you can have an abortion. And this is just heartbreaking. My very good girlfriend had a stillborn at 9 months. I mean, it's
Mm.
trauma. It's terrible. I see Paula nodding her head. Paula's a nurse.
Well, in our family, my girls were both pregnant and due on the same day. On that 21st ultrasound, we found out one had a healthy baby and the other was faced with this exact situation. So this was our first grandchildren coming. And it took me a while to be happy for the child who was pregnant because I was so sad for the child who was having the loss.
Mm-hmm.
And we were very lucky that she lived in Chicago, very lucky that she could terminate. And her doctor said to her, be careful who you tell about this. Not everybody is going to be supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
and in our minds, it was clear. In their minds as a couple, it was clear what they had to do.
Right.
But it's a terrible trauma for people to go through.
Yeah. Yeah.
As miscarriages as well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Um, again, she doesn't bring this up, but in Judaism, you don't sit Shiva for a baby till they live, I want to say maybe 30 days, maybe
Something like we were told that. I think that it's
yeah,
30.
30. And I had a girlfriend whose son died before the bris. So, and they're very observant. So they couldn't technically sit Shiva, but people came to the house, and there you can find more. There's a lot more women rabbis. There's more rituals that have been really created for miscarriage, stillbirth, all of this. Because the reason they had that rule is, women had all these babies, they died, I don't know how women lived in those times. Oh, by any other name. That the woman who might have written for Shakespeare, like, she had, terrible fertility problems. So I think that, at least with the ritual part, we're getting some of that better in Judaism, but what's happening in the political world and uh, how this has become so politicized is heartbreaking, is
Yeah.
absolutely heartbreaking.
Very heartbreaking.
My mom is 92. She goes, I didn't think I'd have to fight this fight again. And it just, it's hard to do. Sandy, I'll unmute you. Go ahead.
I have a question about that. When in Judaism, when can they bury an infant that's born?
So here's the thing. You're not supposed to, unless they live after 30 days, but I can tell you there's a place at maybe at all, but definitely at Waldheim. And I've been there. Actually, I was there for Rob Lindner's parents, I think, are
No, they're not at Waldheim. They're
what
at Westmont.
Westlawn. All right. I was close. And there's like this whole section of babies.
I know because
No,
I
that really?
was doing
Yeah.
a lot of genealogy and I found um, that, and I was Googling, well, I was looking at the name Simon and I found an infant Simon.
Yeah.
And it's where I have other Simon relatives in my
Hmm.
great grandparents.
Yeah.
Well, you know, my
I,
grandfather worked at West Lawn Cemetery for over 25 years. And when my brother and I were little kids, we used to go on Sundays with him to when they had dedications, and we sit in the office coloring in these plats with the grave sites, whatever. I don't remember what it was, but I remember coloring them in. But I never knew that
yeah.
they had a section just for
It's a
babies.
whole section. And I think that
Really? Wow.
again, in modern times, there's um this happened to my girlfriend maybe 35 years ago. So I think that Jewish cemeteries have been accommodating, and I don't want to seem merciless, but they charge a pretty penny, and of course they're going to keep charging that. So of course they're going to let them have a funeral. And um, now she didn't have a funeral. It was just her husband and her and a rabbi because it was too traumatic. It was too
Heartbreaking.
and heartbreaking. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. So that shows part of it. Yeah.
Well, you know, everybody, I'm going to be a great grandma for the first time
That's
because my
right.
granddaughter, Sari, is pregnant.
That's nice.
And she's due in April. But you know, listening to all this talk about all these things,
Yeah.
I'm just hoping and praying that everything is going to be okay. Because she had a really bad first 3 months. Because she's a teacher at a Jewish high school, and she was going to work every day, and she had a lot of this morning sickness, and she actually lost weight the first couple of months. So she's
And
first
she's
showing a little bit
Yeah,
now.
she's super skinny to begin with. Um, so that's why when somebody tells you that they're pregnant or somebody's pregnant, you say Bisha'at Tova, may it come at a good time. You don't say Mazel Tov because that presupposes that everything is going to be okay. And I know that I was traumatically affected by this happened to my girlfriend, but baby showers and all of that. And I still have an image from the book of the crib and that she had
Right,
to take the crib apart herself.
right. And that's what she was mad at him about too, that he wasn't there to help her do that or for
Yeah,
him to do it, whatever. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Um, um, how does Eli change over the 8 nights of Hanukkah? Which moment felt like the most significant turning point for him? Were you surprised that he was in a grief group and she wasn't?
Oh, right. Yeah, he was. Yeah. Well, she was so involved with work that she didn't want to think about it, you know, really be there in her mind. She was working to keep it out of her mind. So that's why, you know, he did it because he had issues with it, and she did too, but she kept burying them in her work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well, that's how she dealt with it. And
right. Yeah,
again, we've seen this now that women have equal careers to men, and so uh, that is something. And then he actually, her trajectory, is she's going up, 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 and he moves to Pennsylvania and has, all these animals.
the
Um,
pregnant llama.
right, exactly. And the vet, and when he goes out with the veterinarian, you're like, no, you have to end up with Evelyn. But uh and watching them come back together, that made me feel good.
Yeah.
Susan,
Oh
I
dear.
got you. I got you.
Oh, okay. Um, well, I'm going to go back to another subject, if that's all right with you.
Sure.
Um, when you talk about um, how in Jewish tradition you don't get anything ready for a baby
Yeah.
before the baby is born.
Hmm.
When my first two children were born, we lived in England on an Air Force base, and we had very few Jewish friends, just a few. Um, and my neighbors wanted to give me a baby shower. And I said, you can't do this,
Yeah.
not until the baby's born.
Yeah.
And my mother had come over from the States to be with me when my first child was born. And uh, no, we didn't. I we had, you know, there was a crib waiting for us that was on order,
Yeah.
but wouldn't
Yeah,
bring it into the house.
right.
And while I was still in the hospital, my husband got the crib put together and everything like that. But I wouldn't allow them. I said, if you want to give me a baby shower, you can do it after the baby's born, but
Good for
not
you.
before.
Yeah. Yeah. Elaine.
So I have a baby shower story too. When I was pregnant with my first child, my husband was like rounding up all my friends, and I didn't know he was going to give me a surprise shower. And he asked my mom, like, "Oh, what's this person's phone number?" She was like, "What? You can't do that." Yeah. So I was actually kind of disappointed because I was looking forward to a baby shower, and we weren't really raised so much with that tradition. And of course, I didn't get one after the baby was born.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But as
Yeah.
the first grandchild on both sides, that little baby wanted for nothing.
Oh, right.
I'm sure, sure, sure. Sure, sure, sure. Um, the book should suggest that love doesn't disappear after death. How does the novel explore the idea of continuing bonds with those we've lost?
Well, I don't know about that so much, but my brother passed away in February, and we were extremely close all of our lives from the time we were small children up until, and he lived only a mile away from me. And when he and my sister-in-law passed away, it's almost 10 years now. And so whenever he was not feeling good the last several years, when I see his name on my phone ID, I said, oh my God, what's wrong? I took him, I don't know how many times to the emergency room. I sat with him in the house. And to this day, I still have trouble with the fact that he is not with me anymore. It's almost like he was my husband instead of my brother because we were that close. And so I feel that it just all depends on the relationship you have with the person who's gone. And, I lost my parents, I lost my grandparents, a sister-in-law, a niece, my brother's wife and daughter both died of lung cancer. But when he passed away, it was a shock at the time. Okay. And I don't feel bad that I still miss him terribly. And I think about him constantly. And it's just like a huge part of my life is gone. So I can understand people having trouble with loss. And I don't think
Mhm.
there's anything wrong with, feeling the way that I feel. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. Merle.
After a loss, it's wonderful to have a photo, a favorite photo of the person that you lost, and that's something you could always keep with you. But in
Yeah.
Evelyn's case, she had the ashes of the baby in a little box, April's ashes. And I thought it was kind of ironic and poetic at the same time that she took that little box with her to see David. And it was April that had caused the divorce in the first place. And now this time, April was going to bring them back together. And he took the little box and they put it up on the mantelpiece. But I thought that was so touching that she kept that little box close where she knew it was with her all the time.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right. That at least she had that. Um, oh wait, I have um what does the story say about hope? Is hope portrayed as something we choose, something that finds us, or something we grow into?
I think all of the above.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think as the story went on and the book goes on, there was more hope. As you see both main characters um, changing. I mean, mainly Evelyn, and of course she went through the she went through the ghosts. Leanne,
But I think they also realized, well, that they still had such strong feelings for each
yeah,
other, and it was when they realized that the other had still had strong feelings.
yeah,
Oh, she did this, she must be thinking about me. Oh, he still cares about me because he helped me out with whatever
hmm
she was doing with
yeah.
that. So I think
Ungluing the sequins from
right,
that.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
When you have some, not proof, but when you have some message that there is still something there, and you want to be hopeful, you're gonna pursue that.
Yeah,
And
She
he did
tried so
that more than
she
she
tried
did.
so hard to push him away, but he wouldn't go.
Right.
Yeah,
So
He
he
was,
was, and until she
exactly.
realized that,
yeah,
Mhm.
you
And
know,
he realized, well, he realized it probably from the minute he left
right.
her, but especially when his date said, I don't want to do this, and he's like, well, see you around, because he knew
Right.
that
yeah.
Right.
she
But
wasn't going to
he
want it.
did try to move on. He did at least
He
try to
tried,
shift.
Yeah.
yeah.
But he always was comparing the woman that he was
Oh,
dating with Evelyn.
right,
And so he could never really
right. Yeah,
commit to anybody else. He was still in love with her. That was so
yeah.
obvious. But I
Yes,
have a question about this ghost business.
yes.
I was wondering if she really was seeing ghosts, whatever, or if that was all brought on from her horrible migraines and the migraines were bringing out the ghosts.
So, it's fascinating because Susan's in my short story book group as well, but there's a lot of magical realism and it's like a new genre. And so that's what I think it is. It's magical realism. I don't think we can pin it down. Was it because she's having migraines? Is it because it furthers the plot? Obviously, it furthers the plot. But
Right, right.
I do think it's magical realism.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And oh, when they go back to the wedding day, I mean,
Yeah.
it opens up the characters for us as well. Merle and then Susan.
Well, Howard and I, hi Howard, we're in a Shakespeare class together, and we have talked a lot about ghosts because of the ghost in Hamlet. And I recently saw a kind of a documentary about making of A Christmas Carol and all the different versions of it. And there was something that came up about if a ghost comes to visit you, you better listen to him. And so, whether it's magical realism or whatever it is, take the time to listen to that ghost.
All
Yeah,
right.
and
Susan, go ahead.
Uh, I think to one of the things that struck me about the fact that in some ways, I don't think David ever really stopped loving her.
Yeah.
How about he had this girlfriend, Claire, and and he went out with her a few times, never called her his girlfriend,
Yeah.
but then came the point when Evelyn was sick and needed him. He left Claire and went to Evelyn and never went back to Claire again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, at least I think Claire had the writing on the wall there,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
and at that point, all of those parts was for me very poignant that they helped each other out and all of that. Elaine.
I think that the dates with Claire were handled really well.
Hmm.
And I think that sometimes for you to recognize, yes, this really is your Bashert, you need to be with someone else or date someone else and say, I would say to myself, I would be having such a good time doing this if I was only doing it with Frank. And I think
That's her husband.
yes,
Oh.
yes. and so I think that was really really well handled. And but what you said about if a ghost visits you, you better listen to them. I think sometimes, I don't know if this happens to other people where you have a dream at night and you dream of someone who's passed. And I feel like that's a visit from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny that you bring that up. I was very close to my mother's mom, my grandmother, and I dream about she died in 1996, 97 maybe. I dream about her all the time, and she's talking to me, and she's the most reoccurring figure in my dreams. And, I don't know why.
I don't dream about my grandmother, but we lived with my mother's parents, and my grandmother was one of the most wonderful people I've ever known in my whole life. I don't dream about her, but I do think about her a lot and the things that we did together in my life as I was growing up as a young child and up to the time that I got married and left my family's home. So I don't have to dream about my grandma because I think about her so much and all the wonderful times we had together. Maybe dreaming about her would be a plus, but I just don't.
How did this story challenge or affirm your own beliefs about love after loss?
I think it was extremely hopeful.
Yeah.
I think it was very optimistic because it is very, very common for couples who lose a baby or lose a child to split up.
I was going to bring that up before and I forgot about it, but I being in the community and seeing so many different people and funerals, you see that a lot. Now you do see some couples who come closer together after they've lost a child. Losing a child is not normal. That's just not normal. So I think it gave a lot of hope. I thought it gave a lot of hope. If you were recommending this book to someone, what kind of reader do you think would benefit most from it? Wait, Leanne, do you want to say something?
I'll I'll say something and I'll be honest. Um, I would not recommend the book. Maybe I'm alone here with this, and I wasn't familiar with the author. I mean, I there were parts of it that I enjoyed and I learned some things from. Um, but for me personally, this wouldn't be a book that I would recommend for somebody to read.
Yeah.
Um, but going back to what you said for that other question about love and hope, um, I think I think about how hard these two individuals had to work to get back to each other
Mm.
and the effort it took and the letting go it took. Um, and a lot of couples don't either have the energy or they don't have the insight, um, or they just can't get there. So it's not something that just happens because the time was right. And I think that the best part of the book for me and what I learned the most and is reinforced all the time is that when you personally go through something so traumatic as losing a child or losing a loved one or any other trauma, it's real, you're so wrapped up in it yourself. It's so hard to think about your loved ones and what how they're experiencing it. And I learned this from my own children. I have three children. We went through some major challenges and trauma with one, and um, I was so focused on getting through it with myself and with my husband, that I didn't think about how it was affecting my other kids. I mean, I thought about it, but I didn't put emphasis on it. And I think, you learn that. I think that's what she realized. She realized how much David had suffered. But she was in too much pain to go there.
Hmm.
So I know I'm saying a lot of different things, but I think it's time, it's energy, it's recognizing that
It's
something
hard
else
work.
is hard work.
Hard work. Hard work.
Lots of hard work, yeah.
Maddie or Kit?
Yes. I admittedly this is probably my least favorite Gene Meltzer book, and I don't know if that's because I mean I'm happy I would have read it either way. I was happy to read it. I've read all of her books, and so if you didn't love it, I would still give her a chance. My other favorite's the Magical Meet Cute about the golem and the matzo ball, her first book. So in that sense, I'd probably recommend this to people who have gone through a termination for medical reasons because it's not something you see represented positively very often. Like obviously it's a sad book, but it's not something where you see, oh, this book is about hope. This book has a happy ending versus it ending terribly. And that's what I liked about Jean Meltzer's other books is as a young, chronically ill Jewish woman, like it's some of the first books I saw myself represented in. And her other books also, in a way, focus very heavily on loss and like they're all romances, they all have hope and uplifting endings. And but that her other books focus on like as a disabled person, how that affects your life and what you lose and a much less obvious loss. And so this loss was like obviously much bigger and more recognized and such a departure in that way that it was like, oh, this is in a way more mainstream than those other losses. And the migraine and the disability representation was definitely second to that. Like she didn't need to have migraines to write this book.
No.
Whereas of all of her other books, the disability representation has been very core to the story. You couldn't have a story without it. So that was really different. So I would recommend it to people who once they're ready, not when it's fresh. Wouldn't recommend this book freshly, but who want to see their story written because it is so important to have that representation.
And she did a really good job of representing migraines as someone who gets visited by them from time to time. She did an excellent job of representing them. That I felt like there could have been a little more exploration of all the new modalities to help manage migraines because it sounded like she definitely had chronic migraine. But I think they said something early in the book, if I'm not mistaken, that she didn't have enough days of headache a month to qualify for the Botox therapy, which you have to have like 14 or 15 headache days every month for your insurance to cover that.
Yeah, and we both get migraines too and get Botox and all this. So we cover the headache the headache migraine representation too. And I'm glad it was in the book. I love seeing disability representation. It just wasn't as core to the story. And that actually would have been our question if Jean Meltzer had been available.
Yes.
Was like how with the disability representation, because her first book was her own disability, and then all of her other books have been different disabilities. How does she research that? How, with sensitivity readers and how she does that research, and because she does represent it very well. And so that would have been our question.
Here.
There's also one other thing, sorry to interrupt, but after every visit with the ghost of Hanukkah, she wound up on the floor, like unconscious almost. And that's why I wonder if it was the migraines, the ghosts, the two together, because she always wound up somewhere on the floor. People would come and wake her up. Or she would be talking about, screaming and having a hard time with what was going on. That's why I questioned the ghost.
Right. Or getting hit in the head with a piano.
That didn't help either.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
All right, Howard.
I was a little confused because she had those pills, back salt or something, whatever they were called. Why she couldn't get more? She was like hoarding them. why couldn't you get more and get a prescription from David? Or, that was a little weird. I was like, I didn't understand that, why she didn't get more pills. I don't know.
I thought about that, and I guess it furthered the plot. But I was like, come
Well,
on.
that happens. That
Yeah.
really happens. I have had to do that. You only get a certain per month because they're abortive medicines and not preventative. You only, even if you can afford it,
9. That's
insurance
it.
covers-
You only get
Yeah.
9 pills a month.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like
Mm.
it's to me, it was so reasonable that she would have been hoarding meds because you only get a certain amount a month, and once you're out until your next refill comes. And that's why I was like, I think you were getting at this too, that like I was curious that she hadn't explored like one of the new CGRPs or like all the things that are available
Yeah.
That's a
this
horrible
year.
thing. That's
Yeah, I
terrible if
take
you
that
can't keep the pills.
Emgali
Yeah.
shot once a month, and it's made a huge difference for me.
Yeah, exactly. I had the same thought.
Well, Leanne.
I just have one quick comment. You didn't ask this question, but probably most people haven't thought of it. Does anybody else wish that they could be, I mean, we talked about, dreaming about maybe relatives who have passed, but I think I would like that experience of being visited by ghosts, to look at my past in terms of how I experienced things or handled things. I think more about the movie A Christmas Carol because it's just been all over the place lately. But and think what's going on presently or what could happen in the future and how I could change, maybe redo things in my life that I'm not proud of or make
You know
things
what?
better for other people. I just think that wouldn't that be a wonderful thing to be visited by ghosts?
I don't know because a lot of times I think about like there are things maybe that I would say in my past that I wasn't incredibly proud of and I would have done differently had I known better. But then I think, well, if I hadn't been there then, would I be here now? Would I have, be with my husband? Would I have my children, or would things be completely different?
Yeah, no, I understand that. I think
Yeah.
since I've always been interested in regression therapy, like what happened in another life or what
Yeah.
happened in something previous. But I think there's something, positive
Yeah.
or I don't know, mystical about being visited,
Yeah.
and having that opportunity to relive or rethink something. I don't know.
Magical realism. Who doesn't
Magical.
want a little magic in their life?
Yeah.
So our next book is, let me just bring it up.
Vanessa.
Yes. Yes.
We can't possibly end this book discussion without talking about Jared.
Oh, yeah. He was.
Oh.
I mean, we're amongst adults here. He was batshit crazy. I mean, and talk about he was seeking out pain meds.
Right.
Yeah.
And the way David dealt with him was brilliant, giving him placebos and he added a lot of color.
Color.
Oh, yeah.
And who brought up, I mean, it was Merle. His, explanation of the ghost, I did think was very heartfelt. And of course, he came through in the end, and she was glad she had picked him. And, you're at the end, you're like, oh my God, this is not never going to come together, this big thing, this production, but it does, and he comes through, and
He
so
was a real character and a half. Oh my
Yes,
God.
he
Some of the
That negative
dialogue
energy.
that she wrote that he would be saying was
Right.
absolutely
The negative
ridiculous.
energy.
Oh my
He couldn't
God.
get
yeah.
past
Yeah.
the negative
Oh,
energy.
when she had to get the yellow Starburst
Starburst.
Oh, the candy
blue
stuff for him.
M&Ms.
Oh my God.
You know what? Sometimes artists put those things in their riders just to make sure that the production company has read the rider.
Ugh.
It's been a
I think
fun
she said that
concert,
in the
right?
book as well. I think
Yeah.
they mentioned it in
She
the
did.
book.
She did.
That was very far-fetched.
But then he wanted it. So
Yeah.
hard to say there. Okay. Our next book is
Peggy?
Peggy?
Peggy. Here it is. By Rebecca Godfrey. And starting Venice, 1958. Peggy Guggenheim, heiress and now legendary art collector, sits in the sun at her white marble palazzo. It goes on about the two families, and I think you'll really like it. I will send it out tomorrow, the name of the book, the author, and we meet again on January 20th. Let me just,
Second,
22nd,
2-2.
2-2,
2-2.
2-2. So I wish everybody a happy Hanukkah. I
Yes,
leave for
happy Hanukkah.
Israel on Monday night. I'm very excited.
Oh.
So I'll be reading the book over again on our trip, and it was great seeing everyone.
Happy
There's a
Good
Hanukkah.
trip.
Happy Hanukkah. There's a big celebration tomorrow night. You can't reserve the dinner, but there's going to be a very festive oneg if you come to services tomorrow night. So
Are
enjoy.
we supposed to bring anything?
Yeah, your Hanukkah menorah.
Okay.
That's it. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So,
Vanessa.
happy
Thank you.
Hanukkah,
Have a
Happy
safe
New Year,
time.
Healthy
Happy
New
New
Year.
Year. Happy Hanukkah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Vanessa.
Bye.